Her 7-year-old son was killed 20 years ago while waiting for a church van in the small town of Streator, 2 hours southwest of Chicago. His killer has never been found.
Tonight, she and the FBI are talking to our Chris Tye about the new theories and old questions and the possibility that enough time has passed for a killer to come clean in the murder of Dalton Mesarchik.
At this point, 20 years later, I really don't think somebody's just going to call up and say, hey, guess what I did 20 years ago? I don't see that happening. There are no perfect crimes.
The longer it goes on, the harder it is to solve. It's somebody 1 or 2 removed from the family, maybe even closer than 1 or 2 removed.
When you break it down, it all points at one person.
Don't get comfortable, you know.
A Streator family and its neighbors sit in fear and mourning tonight as police question dozens of people in the murder of 7-year-old Dalton Mesarchik.
He's like, well, what about church, sissy? You know, I want to go to church tonight. And I'm like, you're going, we're going.
That's the last conversation Danielle Mesarchik had with her 7-year-old brother Dalton. She was going to weeknight church in Streator with friends. He was waiting on a church van to take him, a van that never showed up.
Nobody knew that the van wasn't coming, so everybody stayed waiting that night. So it wasn't just our family, it was, 10 plus families waiting.
Those other families saw their kids come home. Dalton, who was waiting on the front porch for an hour, never did. In that hour, someone coaxed him off his front porch and away from his house without a scream or a struggle.
Dalton didn't trust easily, and he was afraid of the dark. So if he left with anybody in the dark, it had to have been somebody that he knew and trusted. And it had to have been somebody that he knew well.
Do you think the person that took him knew that the van wasn't coming?
Yes. Yes, I do. The person took that opportunity knowing that Dalton was waiting without me and did what they did.
In a very short amount of time, they calculated the situation and...
I think so, yeah.
5 miles away, just outside of town.
The next day, he was found murdered. He had gone missing at about 7 o'clock at night. Was located the next morning in the Vermilion River, face down, floating.
Carrie Landau investigates missing and murdered children for the FBI.
He was found by a local fisherman who was familiar with the family.
Days later, a hammer discovered behind a local business was determined to be the murder weapon. There have been over 1,000 leads and tips in this case. There have been $50,000 rewards. There have been DNA tests and polygraph tests. But in a test of wills, the killer has evaded it all by, it appears, keeping their mouth shut.
It's probably someone that isn't talking. Why would you? I think that's the only way we're going to get them to come forward would be a deathbed confession.
There is 20 years of someone hiding a secret and knowing what happened, and we believe that someone in this community still has the answer. I think it makes it really hard in this instance, especially because everyone knew everyone, and everyone knew Dalton by people kind of minding their own business too, and maybe something they saw they thought wouldn't be helpful, but it absolutely would be helpful for law enforcement.
Not long after pulling his body from this river, it was determined he was not sexually assaulted. So the question turns to why would someone target a 7-year-old boy? Experts who study that sort of thing say the list of motives is actually quite short.
Short list would be he saw something he wasn't supposed to see. The child may have been in a situation where a fight ensued and an accident happened. Possibility of a payback or revenge.
Do you have any theory of the case of why the person who did this did this?
I mean, I believe the person that did it to hurt my mom. She's not the type of person that, carries a bunch of enemies on her back. But there's one person in particular that I believe
hates me.
Has, so.
You agree with her?
Yeah, but I don't know if we can put anything like that in there.
That's as far as this mother and sister wanted to take that.
We believe it was someone who knew Dalton and Dalton was familiar with. He willingly got into a vehicle at the time.
At the time, and now, Dalton's family hopes for justice for the killer of the young boy from the small town en route to church, who today would be 27 years old.
I don't know what we could have done any different than what we've done. You know, that gut feeling. When you talk to somebody make you feel creepy. Did we miss that about somebody 20 years ago?
Ooh, that was Chris Tye reporting. The last 20 years have come with major technical advancement in criminology, but those tools only work when fresh tips and threads emerge.
Investigators need more tips, more threads to weave together a case. So if you have any information on this case, you're asked to call the FBI or the Illinois State Police.